Well, leaders from Australia, New Zealand and the Pacific are in Fiji for the Pacific Islands Forum this week as the region tries to solve problems related to the pandemic, vaccines, climate change, they tell us, while keeping one eye on China. Joining us now to discuss these issues in the region is former Major General, New South Wales Liberal Senator Jim Molan. Jim, thank you very much for your time. The Pacific Islands Forum is said to be shaping up as one of the most consequential in years. I guess when you've got China hovering around these small island nations, forcing them to sign on the dotted line, it's a fair appraisal, isn't it?
Oh, without doubt, Chris. And I say good evening to you and to your viewers. It is an extraordinarily important forum. It's the forum of the neighbours who are closer to us, and it's a forum which contains in it the Solomon Islands. And the Solomon Islands has recently entered into a security arrangement with China, and we've got to keep an eye on China, that's for sure, and that's got to be a very big eye to keep it on China, because China is moving everywhere and is moving all over the place.
Fancy having a Zoom hookup with as many Pacific Islands nations as they can muster, with the Foreign Minister of China, Wang Yi, on the same day that the forum begins. Like, bold and antagonistic are probably very mild terms to describe that.
Yes, and the Pacific Island Forum is well known for having a range of views. I'm not 100% certain why Kiribati has decided to leave the Pacific Islands Forum, whether it's leaving the alliance or the security arrangements, or whether it considers that nations such as it are not prepared or are not being listened to well enough. But on top of it all, we've got climate change. And of course, the Pacific Islands will continue to criticise Australia for our climate change, but not criticise China for the targets that we set for climate change. And, you know, I would insist, before giving a brass razoo to anyone in the Pacific Islands, that we see the science and the engineering which indicates that our climate change targets have anything to do with whatever might be claimed to be climate change problems that the South Pacific has.
Yeah, cough up the science is my point earlier on, and you're exactly right. Now, the Albanese government has had 2 senior meetings with ministers from the Chinese cabinet. How do you think they're faring in trying to mend our relationship with China?
Well, they're doing their best. They're doing exactly what we did, except we got no reply to them, because what is happening with the Labor government at the moment is what is happening with what happened 3 years ago to us. China just refused to speak to us. Now, we're not at that stage yet, but we're not far away from it. How can China issue 4 demands to Australia, one of which is that we must stop being manipulated by other powers, particularly the US? How can we reject those, as the Prime Minister has done, yet expect to do business with China? So China makes 4 demands. We will have to reject them all, because not only do they change the security equation that we have in our part of the world, but they change the very nature of a liberal democracy. Yeah. So it is not possible to see this. It's not possible to see it going on. Is China going to roll over and say that, oh, the 4 demands that we made to you, 1, 2 and 4, we're going to forget about those and only go for the US? No, it's not going to do that. It's going to insist on them all. So I suspect that good on Labor for doing whatever it can to speak to China, but at some stage this is going to come crashing down around their ears.
Yeah. One last one. The Defence Minister, Richard Marles, is in the US. He made the point of saying that we could do with more high-tech arms as opposed to submarines. I hope he's not backing away from our commitment through AUKUS and nuclear submarines, but he's right about high-tech arms, isn't he?
Well, I suspect he's not backing away from AUKUS, which has one of the strands of AUKUS being the possibility of nuclear submarines sometime in the future. I suspect that he is taking what I would consider to be the easy way out. And that is to go for a high-tech solution, which theoretically you can develop in Australia, without looking at what we need. So he has somehow decided that high tech is going to solve all our problems, whereas I would say that the problems with the Australian Defence Force and the problems with the country as a whole are a total lack of resilience. Our Defence Force lacks lethality. It's not tough enough. That's what that means.
Yep.
It lacks sustainability. We can't fight for long enough, and it lacks mass. There are not enough of us. So it's not just high tech. We've got to decide what kind of war we want to fight and win, and then we decide what we need. Maybe we need both high tech and low tech weaponry.
Great to have you on the program, Jim. Thank you very much for your time.